Wedding photography has never been easier to enter. You can buy a camera, post online, and start getting attention pretty fast. But staying relevant for years, that is a different kind of game. Because trends change, platforms change, style evolve, way of shooting, and still some photographers keep growing without losing themselves. So today we are with Matias, and we want to explore what actually makes a wedding photographer last. So stay with us because we are going to break down what really compounds over time and what quietly makes photographers disappear. So Matias, we are here together, and I'm really looking forward to delve into this topic with you.
Yeah, I'm really excited. I think this is a very important topic for people that want to um, not only stay relevant in the industry for a long time, but also kind of grow their business incrementally over the years rather than stay in the same place. I think that there's many things that you can do that we can dive in here in a moment, but I know you have some awesome questions. You're very good at planning these things. You have more of a structure. So I'm gonna let you take it away and we'll dive right in.
Yeah. So I was thinking that one interesting way of delving into this topic would be to understand how we ended up resolving in a long lasting experience and business into this industry, both me and you, through our path. So I would like to know more about you, about your past. How do you end up being a wedding photographer and building a sustainable business for a long time?
Absolutely. I started out really photography's always been part of my life. It's something that I've done from a very young age for fun. I used to bring a camera with me everywhere I went when I was, in the older teenage years, younger years. I every trip or anywhere we went, I just remember my mom always had a camera with her, and I had an obsession with taking photos, having her help me take photos, and then looking at albums that we had family photo albums that I got to meet a lot of family through that I hadn't met because they passed away before I was born. So that connection of capturing moments and being able to preserve them for generations and showing people what life was like before you were around is something that was so special to me. And weddings, I kind of honestly stumbled into it because from a very young age, loving photography, weddings was never anything that I even considered or remotely wanted to be a part of. It's something that almost seemed very daunting. It almost sounded like boring to me almost, right? And I think that came from a place of ignorance, of not knowing what really goes into it and what it was like to capture weddings. So I started off just doing, lifestyle and exploring kind of what I liked about photography and what attracted me. And it got to a point where I was doing a lot of portrait work of individuals. And then that kind of turned into a couple of friends. Hey, will you take some portraits of the two of us? And I did some of that. And then another friend asked, Hey, I'm getting married. Would you want to come and take some pictures? And I told them, Look, I have no experience in weddings, but I'll come along. I'll bring my camera, no pressure. I'll get some photos. And I just remember being in that environment, and obviously it was nice because it was low pressure, it was friends, it wasn't a paid job. And being in that situation, and I didn't know that they had actually hired a wedding photographer. They just wanted me to capture, the behind the scenes, all the moments that the wedding photographer wouldn't be there for. And I ended up at the end of the day striking up a conversation with a wedding photographer, and they asked me if they could see the photos that I had captured, and I sure no problem. I gave them my memory card, and they downloaded it, and they ended up saying, "Hey, I really enjoyed having you around. I really like the photos that you captured. Would you be interested in coming assisting me or working with me? I'll kind of show you the ropes of wedding photography." And at that point, I was doing photography for a surf school, taking photos of people surfing and selling those in some family sessions. And I said, why not? It seems interesting. And next thing I knew, I just fell in love with the process of weddings. I love that high energy. I love the pressure aspect of it, the parameters of here's 15 minutes with this light in this room. You don't get to control it. You just get to produce, you got to produce beautiful work in these strict parameters. And that became very addicting to me because of the challenge factor of it, you know. And that's kind of how I got into weddings, just constantly chasing that feeling of, hey, you need to make an absolute gem out of this moment with these parameters. Go, you know, and
Yeah.
walking
Yeah.
in never knowing what you have coming at you, because you can plan and prepare, but things always change, as you will learn in wedding photography, and you very well know. So that's something that kept me coming back. And you know, I was thinking today before a call, curiosity, same thing. I don't know much about how you got started, so maybe you can tell me a little bit about like your beginning and what brought you into weddings.
Yeah, sure. First of all, thank you for sharing this. I think it's very interesting to learn about others people's backgrounds, how photographers approach the matter, and then they evolve into wedding photographers.
Hmm.
What I feel is like many of us, it's very difficult that we jump straight into weddings. There are some, of course, but generally it's like a path. And it's interesting how your roots is, if I understand it correctly, you were already linked to a kind of photography that was kind of connected to a
Hmm.
meaningful connection with family, with
Hmm.
then your client's portraits. So you were already in that kind of sphere of trying to bring value and emotion to your photo. And then it by circumstances, basically, it evolved into wedding photography. For me, the path has been a little bit different because I started from almost day one with wedding photography
Hmm.
because one of my friends and tutor, let's say, he was a wedding photographer. But I always been like following two paths, and alongside wedding photography, which I'm doing for 15 years now, I've always worked as a event photographer, fashion photographer. I started in theater, like taking photos of somebody performing on stage. And I've taken still life, real estate, business, and corporate. So I've tried so many different kind of photography styles. And the most interesting part is I think that each piece of our background is shaping the way we work in the end as wedding photographers. And this is what makes everybody unique. You know, you
Yeah.
have your own way of shooting because of your past, of your experiences. I have my own way because of that as well. And um, the how can we link this to the to today's topic? Because
Hmm.
we are talking about how we stay relevant, right? So, what? Let me ask you this first. What generally people think makes you relevant, in your opinion? So, because many photographers they assume generally that is
Hmm.
related to maybe trendy editing, social media visibility, uh, copying other photographers' work, having
Hmm.
the last piece of gear. You know, we live in
Yeah.
YouTube, so it's very much gear oriented. But style and overall relevance on the market probably comes from something else. So I want to know what is your take on this topic, and
You know,
please link it to your experience because this is very
yeah.
interesting for me. So how did you end up evolving in a sustainable way?
I think that's a great question, and I'm trying to think of a good answer that will suffice. And you know, it's interesting to me because relevance, defining who is relevant in the industry is kind of broad, right? Because let's say it. I think personally, it could vary depending on market, depending on caliber of weddings, right? I think relevancy, it just to be someone who is, what pops into my mind is someone who is, you know, booking through the year, so they're not struggling for bookings. They have a good calendar year locked in. Someone that's constantly working, somebody whose work you see and I don't think it necessarily needs to be every photo he's taking is like the trendy thing that's happening right now, because trends will come and go. And it's funny now, I'm seeing articles and posts about timeless editing and true white balance is now the trend. Or, if you were doing that before, now that's like what's coming back around, because we just came out of an era of bringing reds into the shadows and desaturating your greens and making them yellow, all these things that came and went, right? And it's coming back around. I don't think it's coming back around. I think that true to color, true to life editing is something that's always going to be relevant, because that is what we appreciate, what we see every day with our eyes, and how you get back into that moment. And there's deviations from it, but I think that's to not beat this word timeless, right? Because I think everybody uses that word too much. But it's a style that's true to what that day was. And I think you could be relevant in your own industry in a certain way, but I think truly it would come down to somebody who's consistently working and booking and willing to grow as an artist, who's curious, who's not uh, letting themselves become stagnant or trapped in this track that's one way, and the way I've been doing it for years, and not willing to change, right? I think someone who's curious is going to remain relevant. Someone who's eager to grow as an artist, someone who wants to experiment, who's constantly coming up with ideas of things they want to try. They might be influenced by something they've seen or something that's trending, but willing to push and say, this is cool, but how can I change it and add a little bit of my sauce to it? I think that for me to get to that point, it was like any photographer. When you start out, you obviously are going to see things that are trending and you're going to say, that's really cool, I want to have photos like that. And you're going to try it and you're going to take photos and you like it in the moment. And then you're going to look back and be like, maybe I shouldn't have done that. But it's all part of growing as an artist. As artists, especially with photography, I think you got to try everything. You said it yourself. You tried all types of photography, whether it was fashion, corporate, landscape, but you need to try things to know whether you like them or not. And I think for me to become relevant, it was a mix of willingness to try things and being true, having a balance of being true to my own art too, right? What I truly liked. So not doing things just because they were cool in the moment, but because I truly did look at it and it satisfied and fulfilled me at the end of the day. And I walked away feeling like, okay, I feel like I created something that I'm proud of, not something that other people are going to say, that's really cool because that's trending. Does that, I
Yeah,
don't know if
yeah.
that.
No, it makes sense. You brought up a topic which is very interesting. I would have asked next, to be honest, which is the balance. You mentioned something about being curious, being pushy towards ourselves to explore in a way that we can express a path of growth, right? So there is a line and there is a balance in this, which I think it can be confusing a little bit, especially when you're new to the market. So where is the line? Because it's easy to be dragged when you start experimenting.
Mm-hmm.
And the big risk we have is not being true to our core vision. So basically, style has to come from identity. It's not like imitation of something that you're seeing, right? Otherwise, it will not be sustainable on a long run. So there is a relationship between identity and adaptability. So how can they be both true at the same time? This is the balance, which is actually, I think, it's very hard, right? So
Super hard.
I I think that's especially at the beginning, as you have to develop your own identity and style, you have to try and experiment. That's why the first part of each one of us in our career as wedding photographers, you see the most shift in style because we are trying to find our own voice.
Truly.
That is a path that you cannot avoid. You have to try and see what is working for you, what resonates with your own core, and we cannot start and already know who we are as wedding photographers. It's a path that we have to develop. So the first answer that I think is coming from this chat with you, especially for photographers that are starting out, is how you stay relevant on a long run. Is you have to find the right balance between experimenting something new, trying to find your own voice, but at the same time, I think that there must be some kind of research and thinking ourselves like as a brand, and you have to work on your branding strongly from the beginning. The sooner you do this, then you set a path, then all of kind of experimenting and trying to find your own voice is going to revolve around as a strong path. So in the end, basically you have to define your taste, your identity as a brand. You have to take care of your client experience. Of course, it has to be strong, and you have to be very adaptable. So what you were saying before, you have to take care of the trends. You cannot like pretend they don't exist, but you have to understand what is your core and how to adapt those trends to your business if it makes sense, how much to incorporate, how much is relevant for you as a photographer, or how much you're doing this because it's just trendy on Instagram and clients are asking for that, right? So I think if we have to identify like 4 pillars can be like taste, identity, client experience, adaptability. So these 4 concepts, they really mark a path of growth and sustainability, a sustainable business. When you asked what is relevance,
Yeah.
you said we have to define relevance first of all, and I think there is. I agree on everything you said. You just missed one core point, which is the business we build. It has to be sustainable for ourselves first. It has to be something that we are really truly passionate about. The biggest mistake is trying to understand what could work on the market and bend our personality towards that. I think the market is big enough for us to find our own niche based on our personality. The sooner we do this and we build a strong brand around it, the more sustainable and relevant sustainable the business is, and the more relevant we are on the market on a long run, right?
I would absolutely agree with that. I think that uh, to me, you need, like I said, you need to do something that you truly believe in and you feel is feeding you as an artist, and walk away knowing that it's representing you and who you are and who you want your business to be. Because if you're going to pretend to be something that you're not, you're going to burn out and you're going to get really over it and you're going to want nothing to do with it, because that's what you're going to keep getting asked for, and you're going to have to keep producing that. And it's going to get to a point where you can't sustain it anymore. It's going to be exhausting. So I think is finding what really represents you and your art. And there's so many variations. There's no right and wrong. It's a reflection of your personality and, like you said, your past, right? Your past experiences, not only with photography, but in life in general, will represent how you see moments, how you capture moments, and how do you even communicate with your clients. How I do it, it's probably different than how you do it. How I pose is probably different than how you pose, so I think is being true to yourself within your business and having it be a direct representation of who you are. That's definitely, yeah. I think that's one of the most important things. I think no matter what business you're in, it should always represent your core values and what you truly believe in. And once you set those and they're true to who you are as an individual, then your business will grow, because your passion, if you're passionate about it and all you got to do is just keep going at it.
Keep
And
going.
it's a
Yeah.
matter of time. People are going to see that passion. People see that excitement, see the love that you have for your baby that you're growing. And it's gonna take off. It's a matter of time. So when people are like, how do you get so busy? How do you book so many jobs? How did you get your business to where it is today? Well, I love what I do. I'm here 12 years later from when I started. I still get just as excited for weddings. I still take a picture, look at it, and I'm like, that's exactly what I wanted to capture. That's what I wanted to create. And I giggle and I laugh and I'm excited like a little kid, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that passion and that excitement shows, and that will push your business to grow over time. So, yes, definitely being passionate and true to who you are within your business is a core point of relevancy. Yeah.
Definitely. And I want to link this to a conversation we had on the phone like a few days ago. I remember we were talking about YouTube. YouTube is the same. We were talking exactly about this topic. We cannot jump into YouTube unless we truly enjoy the process of doing that.
Totally.
And for weddings, it's exactly the same. You said it's the same for every business, and I couldn't agree more. It's the essence of growing a business is that you have to be passionate about it. You have to have a clear vision for the branding from day one or as soon as possible, and go in that direction. And each decision you make, if you have a strong vision, is going to be easier to take, right?
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
even this can be linked also about, I had another question for you, which is, what is the difference between evolving your own style and chasing other styles that you can find on the internet? What is the
Hmm.
fine balance between incorporating something new, fresh, that maybe your clients are asking because they constantly see
Hmm.
that on social media? How difficult it is to resist a trend that you feel like is not part of your own core, or how come should you embrace that trend, and how to incorporate maybe just a little bit of that in your photography, or shift a little bit towards that trend, but making sure that you stay true to your core and to your vision? What is your approach on this? I think I have a pretty understanding of your way of doing, but
Hmm.
really would like to know your opinion about that.
No, that's good. You got some really good questions, man. You had some very introspective questions. My brain is working. I would say, hmm. So when I think of growing, evolving, and still paying attention to trends and styles, one thing that I will never change is how I edit my images. Right. Like that's one thing that I stay true that I think I stay very true to my style, and I don't follow a lot of trends. Is I have a very consistent look to my color tones, to my the contrast that I add into my photos. Like my overall look of my image when it comes to post production and editing is always going to be very much the same, slowly growing. Because if you look at my preset over the last every year there's little micro, even if it's a micro adjustments, they happen. They might not be noticeable to a normal non-photographer, but as a photographer I think I see those little things. So my preset's always changing, but there's certain things that I'm not going to go crazy and add new styles every year, because to me, one of my core things in my photography business is consistency and setting the right expectations. So when a couple hires me, whether their wedding is in a year or in 2 years, which I've booked before 2 years in advance, they know exactly what they're going to get. Right. They're not going to be like all of a sudden I love your work. And now here you are a year or two later, and now you've adopted this like Wes Anderson editing style. And next thing you know, they get their gallery and they're like, wait, this is not what we hired 2 years
Yeah.
ago. Right. So to me, that's been one of my core values. And I tell my couples always, my look is consistent. you're gonna get the what are your photos gonna be edited like? What you see is what you're gonna get now in a year and 2 years. It might slowly change, but to them, it's not gonna be a crazy, drastic, dramatic change because this is how I've always liked my photos and how I know I will always like my photos. Little changes will happen. I'm not saying I'm not willing to grow and see other ways, but it's just I like my greens the way I've always liked my greens. The color tone of my greens is never going to change because I've been obsessed with a certain tone forever, right? Now, as far as shooting, that's different because your selection in lenses is going to be different. What you like for gear is going to change. Gear in itself, it's evolving and changing, which in fact changes the look. My photos straight out of camera don't look the same now as they did when I was shooting with a 5D, with a Canon 5D to now the mirrorless, right? So things obviously are going to evolve out of your control in that way. When it comes to shooting and capturing moments, I think that I'm always looking to grow. I still value the same emotions, the same moments, but maybe I have a certain different approach to how I see light. Maybe I'm inspired by, I get inspired. The other day I was walking around my house at sunset. The season changed. Now the sun's coming in through the window differently, and I'm seeing this light and the shape. And all of a sudden, I have an idea for a shot that I want to do at a wedding. Now I need to look and chase that light and find it in its own place, right? That was inspired by that moment, or even getting inspired by movies and seeing how they frame photos and moments, by shows, by other people's work on Instagram, right? I try to limit how much I expose myself to other people's work on Instagram because it can be detrimental to you at a certain point. I think that as artists we all have an imposter syndrome, so we just compare ourselves to other people, and it's very important to know that from the other side they're comparing themselves to your work too. So try to have a healthy dose of what you expose yourself to when it comes to other people's work, and have the right mindset when you see it. That's a cool shot, I love it. Maybe don't imitate stuff, but try and mold it to your style. And like, okay, how would I capture it if I wanted to do something like this? And that's how I look at trends. When people started going with, I used to be so against having flash on my camera pointed straight at my subjects. And one day I said, you know what? This is so trendy right now. Everybody's doing that type of shot. What instead of just going like this and not trying it, why don't I just go have fun with it? Why don't I just put a flash on my camera, point it straight at the subject, and how would I shoot this? If I had this setup, how would I approach it, right? And I started having so much fun trying something that was trending, but adding my little spice to it, right? So kind of modifying, so not being afraid to try something that's trendy, but don't make your whole day about it. Don't make your whole style about it. Don't just like put on that mask and make your whole identity that trend. It's like
Yeah.
sample a little bit of it and then put your little sauce on it and see what comes out. One
Yeah.
thing that I do as well is I have a rule for myself, and I've done this from the very beginning, is like any job, it's easy to get into a groove of things, and it's really easy once you get used to doing things a certain way to just go into autopilot. I know I could just show up, shoot the wedding this way, they're gonna love it. I'm not challenging myself. I can just go get the same things over and over, and every gallery is gonna look the same, right? But I told myself I never want to be like that. And one rule I set for myself is at least one new thing you have to try. It doesn't need to be something that you saw, just something, I don't know if you have this, I'm sure you do. When you're in a moment, you're walking maybe from one place to another, and just something, you see something that just catches your eye. That could be cool. Like this little voice in my head pops up is like, what about this? And a lot of times it's so easy to say, you know what, we don't have time for that. Let's just move on to the next thing. Or it would take me going and getting this thing and getting into an awkward position. It's like that extra little bit of work, right? And it's easy to quiet that voice down. But my rule for myself is anytime I have that little moment, doesn't matter what it takes, as long as the couple's down for it and a timeline allows for it, Maybe we switch it to a different part of the day. I'm going to go and do it. I'm going to do that at least one time, one thing that sometimes it doesn't work, but some of my favorite photos have come out of those moments of, let's try this and see what happens, you know? And I
This is,
think
yeah.
that pushes you to grow. And maybe that becomes the new trend thing that people want to do as well. You know, it's, you never know.
So I'm trying to, because I'm grasping on your concept, and I think I have two to three topics I would like to delve into more details. One is, how much time do you think that, because there is a growth as a wedding photographer,
Hmm.
and at the beginning is more likely your way of shooting is changing more often because
Yeah.
you're trying to find your voice, your own voice. So how long was it for you until it got to a place that it was stable enough? Because you said my style is not changing much. I'm sure it's been for the last few years, but probably at the beginning it was like more,
Oh, yeah.
after what you were
Absolutely.
experimenting. It's been the same for me. For me, for example, 15 years, I could tell you like the first 5 to 7, even 8 years,
Yeah.
it's been the most like different kind of style, trying to understand who I was. I never jumped into the brownish, desaturated
Hmm.
brown, reddish trend.
Hmm.
It's never been relevant to me. Um, I never overexposed too much my image when the overexposing style came. So I always try to be a little bit more uh, conservative on this. And I'm linking to one topic that you mentioned. I don't want my clients that book me 2 years before they receive their own images to feel like, who is this guy? I didn't
Absolutely.
book this photographer for these photos. And I think this is one of the biggest mistake people can do. Even when you realize, okay, you know what? I could have done this differently. Don't switch from one day to another, like completely, because
Yeah.
that is not fair towards your clients. But again, the more true to your own style you are when you expose your work to the outside, the easier is to get clients that resonate with that. And then
Hmm.
your clients, the quality of your clients increase. What do I mean by quality? I mean how well you match with clients' expectations. So the better you are in branding and positioning yourself and bringing your own personality and make it clear to your clients, the easier it gets for clients to understand if you're a good match and for you to be more satisfied by the clients that are chasing after you, basically. Right. So this was one of the topic I wanted to talk about. The other one is like you mentioned, like trends and grasping
Hmm.
and jumping into a moment. You see like a certain kind of light, so you decide to take a moment for yourself, and you try to take that moment as a moment of growth and experimentation, even if you're working with clients, right? So I think this is very much personal between photographers. I have the feeling that my way of experimenting is mostly outside of the wedding day itself.
Hmm.
Wedding day itself for me is mostly about experience and experimentation. It comes from when I'm shooting fashion, when I'm shooting different kind of photography, or maybe when I'm doing a style shoot. That is the moment for me to try to experiment. Or when I see somebody else work, then something pops into my head. And it's very interesting how to see photographers, how do they approach this matter in a different way. And there is no right or wrong. This is the beauty of it, you know?
Hmm.
I'm not here to say I'm doing this right or you're doing that right.
Of
What
course.
I want to point out is that how beautiful is that two people, they can relate to this kind of matter in two different ways and still be true to their style, true to their core vision, and giving clients what they want. So there is no like established path that is true for everybody, even if the outcome on a long run is the same. So we both have sustainable and relevant business for many years. We share a lot of common ground, and yet we have our differences. So I want to go towards the end of this conversation with you, linking to this concept of we are not the same. We have all different backgrounds. We are of all different kind of visions. Sometimes it's closer, sometimes it's more different. What is the advice? What is the wrap up for today's session for people? What do they have to aim for? So after this conversation, what are the main pillars photographers, either experienced or just jumping into wedding photographer? What is the main concept you think we should all aim for in order to
Yeah,
have it? We discussed this, but let's wrap it up so it can
totally.
be, you know.
No, it's good. I would
So
say,
what to build first?
yeah,
If I had to ask, what should we build first, and what we should absolutely avoid?
I think the first thing that you should have is passion for photography. So if you want to have longevity and growth in your business, you need to love what you do. Don't just get into it because it sounds like a good way to make money. I mean, you can do it, but don't expect to take off like crazy if you're not passionate about it. I think the next thing you got to have is patience. You have to be very patient with the growth. It takes time. It's like any skill. If you are just getting into photography or you've been doing it for a few years, you need to have grace on yourself and be patient with yourself
That's
because
a good one.
you only going to get better if you practice. So you need to be exposed to different situations, different experiences, different moments that are just going to build your confidence level. They're going to build your skill level, your comfort level. When you're going to get to a point, eventually, this ties into patience, where you're going to be so comfortable with your camera. Now, settings and figuring out what your camera should be in to get a certain photo is going to be second nature. Seeing the light and working your subject with your settings and the light, it's going to become second nature. The posing is going to become more of an interaction, conversation, fun moment rather than let me look at my list of poses, right? Which nothing wrong with that. Maybe you need to do that to get to a point where you get comfortable and confident doing that, where it becomes second nature. So it's having grace and knowing that it's gonna take time to get good at it, like it will take time to get good at anything else. Just because you know the basics of photography doesn't mean you're all of a sudden gonna be a killer wedding photographer, right? So it's just being patient and knowing that it's going to take time to build the business. It's going to take time to get better at photography. It's going to get time to get a loyal following or the ideal customer, like you said, the ones that want to hire you for you, that are loving your work. And the ideal customer to me is somebody that I love your work. I want you to capture my wedding day. I have no suggestions. I trust you. Have fun. Do your thing. That takes time. I had to do hundreds of weddings that were not exactly what I wanted to shoot, or they had a shot list, or here's all these things that I want you to do. You're basically being hired as a body with a camera that knows how to operate it, to get to the point where I'm getting the clients that I'm walking away in love, being like, this was such a fun experience. So things take time. They take a lot of persistence. You have to be very perseverant in your craft. You need to understand that imposter syndrome, that little voice that tells you you're not good enough, will always be there. You just need to battle it and not listen to it, and just put your blinders on. Keep doing what you know makes you happy. Keep experimenting, whether it's in the wedding day or outside of the wedding day. Bring your camera with you everywhere. If you're not working, don't just shoot when you're working. Shoot everyday life. Shoot for fun. It doesn't matter if it's great or not. You want to have that in your hands and do it for a passion like you did before you started in the business. I would go out with friends. I would bring my camera, whether it was to go surf, to go hike, whatever it was. We just bring the camera for fun. It's no different. Now you're making money with it. Keep practicing, keep loving your craft, and have patience. It's gonna take time, but yeah, I don't know what else. That's what I wish more people
Yeah,
told me at the beginning.
yeah,
Don't be so hard on yourself.
yeah,
Just take your time.
yeah. I think it's a very good angle, this one. I wanna add to this that try desperately to find your core vision as
Hmm.
soon as possible, which is the
Yeah,
most difficult thing to do.
definitely.
But aside the technical aspect, it's interesting that we haven't talked about gear at all. And this says a lot of things about what is relevant, building a
Yeah.
sustainable business, Uh,
So
but
true.
you have to go, you mentioned you have to manage your technical skills. That has to be taken for granted. So if you're still struggling with those, please go ahead and shoot. Take photos of your pets, take photo of people on a street. Do whatever you can, but you have to master your craft. That
Yes.
has to be taken for granted. This is one path. Parallel to this is finding your own voice. Your own voice, you find it through experimentation at the beginning. So there is going to be a curve in which you are more unstable with your own way of producing images. They're going to be more different between one another. The first year is going to be different than the second and the third and the fourth, probably. Then you're going to find and focus who you are in photography and what is your vision. That is the most important part on a long run, because if you find the right voice that resonates with you, it means that it's sustainable, that you enjoy doing that, that you're gonna grow faster because of it, that is going to bring you more excitement, the excitement you were talking about at the beginning of this conversation. I'm taking a photo. I'm excited, genuinely excited about what I'm building in that moment.
Hmm.
This is beautiful. This is how it should be. And this can be true only if the vision you have is resonating with your own core. And I think we should mention also what people should definitely avoid, and you go first and I follow. Let's see
Yeah,
if we
I think that comparing yourself to other people is the worst thing you could do. That when you look at other people's work and you judge your own work in parallel to what someone else is doing, there's no benefit that comes from that. It's detrimental. I'm not saying don't take constructive criticism, right? Like take criticism and grow from it. But when you yourself start putting your work up against someone else and then you tell yourself, I wish I was as good as that person, nothing comes from that, right?
yeah.
I think comparing yourself to other people is one of the things that you should definitely avoid. And the other thing is not diving deep into the technical side of things. I think you should become really good at understanding why you make the adjustments that you make, that you should become really good at understanding your camera, how it works, full manual mode, flash, how it works, full manual mode, why you're making adjustments. Don't just like, oh, every time I do this, it works. So dive deep and understand it. I think that avoiding getting deep into the technical side of photography is something you can get away with for a little while, but eventually, in the worst of situations, on a day where you have no control of the weather or outcome, that's when it really shows up and it catches up to you. So I would say those two things: comparison of your own work to others, and avoiding deep dive into the technical aspect of photography.
Yeah. Interestingly, okay, I'm gonna disagree on one,
Go for it. Yeah, yeah.
which is fun. I'm not disagreeing on on the main aspect of it. Like as you unfolded the topic of comparison with other photographers, I agree that if you take it from the perspective of I'm not gonna be good enough, I'm not good enough today, this is pushing you. If this is pushing you down, then stop doing that. I think that this is very much dependent on people's personality. If try to know yourself. There is no, I don't think there is like a rule in here. I think you have to really know yourself. Is it comparing yourself to other photographers, better photographers, pushing you towards doing better? Then do it. Hell, do it every day, So if this is bringing you down, if this is bringing your confidence lower, then of course you have to avoid. But I think the missing part of this is that it's very much linked to our personality. So for me, it's always been the opposite, to be honest. I've always tried to understand who are the best, not in town, not in my country, in the world. Who are the best in the world? Is my work comparable to those? Yes. No. Whatever it was, I should push forward more and more and more until I reach that moment. It's gonna be never ending, of course. There is always
Absolutely.
to learn. We are not never to the end of the our growth. But for me, it was working the other way around, for example, So I think it's very much a matter of personality.
Yeah, I've always been so hard on myself and put a lot of pressure on everything. So for me, is definitely the comparison. I would put myself down, and it didn't motivate me. If anything, but that was like that with a lot of things in my life. I've always been very hard on myself. So I definitely agree with you on the personality thing.
Yeah.
And yes, anytime comparing in a negative way, because comparing or like finding inspiration and learning or like analyzing other people's work for growth, I see it as a different approach for sure. And that's something that everybody should do. And I still to this day look at wedding magazines or fashion magazines and look at someone else. Oh, that's cool how they do that. And I've grown to a point where I feel like I'm adult enough to know that nothing good comes from that, putting myself down. So I find inspiration and I say, oh, okay, yeah, I see how I could do this different, blah, 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 rather than like, oh, they're so much better than me. I suck. I need to just throw this away. But yes, you nailed it with a personality and knowing yourself. And that for me took time because I started early and I just struggled in many ways.
Yeah, it's normal. Yeah. And the second topic you mentioned was not knowing enough of your gear and tech, so not having enough knowledge. And we can link it to not being too much conscious of your own gear. So one mistake that I see a lot of time, chasing after the last piece of gear and tech on the market. This is bringing people to shift the focus from what is really relevant for your business and what is just nurturing your inner photography, amateur photographer inside of you, because we are all passionate about cameras, lenses, flashes, whatever we are. Otherwise, we wouldn't do this. Most of us, there are people that are really much focused on something else. I'm speaking here for myself and for a big chunk of people following us on YouTube probably. But I'm seeing this sometimes as a mistake. So we delve too much into details of gear that we lose the focus. This is something I've been guilty myself. And I think that there is also a path of growth through this, which we have to go through. So there is a moment in our career where we have to go so deep into technicalities of gear and techniques in a way that we know what we are going to need, what are the skills that we need, how to handle our cameras, and what can be useful for us that is present on the market as a piece of technology. So we have to go through it a lot. But once we've been through the stage, I think then we have to refine. Refine meaning then getting rid of what is not useful for us, focus on the fewer elements and master them to the core so that we can do whatever we have to do on the set when we are shooting. You were talking about you don't have to think about your settings. How can you reach this? Through what you were saying before, not going through the mistake of not being technical enough, not knowing enough. But to go through that, you have to first go through a stage of being obsessed over techniques and gear. Once you pass that stage, stop being obsessed over that and refine constantly in a constant path of growth because it never ends. But at the same time, the main focus has to be on something more important, which is what we discussed until now.
Yeah, totally. No, I think that's spot on. I always tell people, strip it down to your essentials. Set yourself some strict parameters and start out with that. One lens. Don't overcomplicate it. Don't try and think of like, I just bring 5-10 lenses, just one lens and your body, pick your aperture and set everything else accordingly and just simplify for yourself and practice with that until it becomes second nature. And then you can start adding little by little. If you simplify what's right in front of you, you can focus on light. Once you get really good at focusing on light, now you can focus on the couple. Once you get into really good at that, you can just little by little, you add up. But start with a bare basics, get really good at it, move on to the next thing.
Yeah. All right. Matias, it's been really nice talking to you. I think we delve into very interesting topics. I think we cover a big chunk of what we had to cover. And I think there is a lot of questions that were popping in my head. I'm sure for you it was the same. I think that we could be talking for hours.
Definitely could.
But let's reset our brain. Let's consolidate, and probably we are going to delve into details in our channels, both as individuals and hopefully in the next session with you, because I'm really enjoying the conversation. It can be with you, and I'm really looking forward to see all the comments from our audience. I'm doing this on YouTube because I strongly believe in the community, and I know for you it's the same. We discussed this, so I'm really curious about knowing each other photographer, which is gonna see this episode. What is their background? How it was shaping their vision? What was the main focus for them? And let us know in the comment what is the main thing you have to be focused. What do you think you have to focus, and what you have to, for sure, avoid to build a relevant and sustainable business on a long run.
Absolutely. I love it. And if there's any other topics that they want to hear us chat about or dive deeper into, leave that in the comments also. And yeah, we have lots of ideas for more of these conversations to come. So keep checking back in.
All right. Take care, Matias. Been a pleasure.
Yeah, it was great to chat, man. It was great to chat. And that was awesome. Thanks for organizing all the questions and having such a curious mind. It's great.
Thanks.